You're the guy people call when they need a helping hand, moving furniture, unloading a truck. But lately, your shoulder's been acting up, and you're the one who's calling for help. And that's the moment you realize you can no longer shoulder the load.
The Joint and Spine Center is Cincinnati's leading destination for orthopedic care with a range of surgical and non-surgical treatments. So when a moment has the power to change the rest of your life, go to the one place with the power to change it for the better, the Christ Hospital Health Network. This changes everything.
The Pound This Podcast is brought to you by the Christ Hospital Health Network. This is the Pound This Podcast, episode 782, How to Eat for Your Genetics, with registered dietitian Karolin Saweres.
I want to lose weight, but I don't know how to get started.
What should I meal prep every week?
How do I get those sweet booty gains?
Inspiration for your healthy lifestyle. The Pound This Podcast with Amanda Valentine.
What up, friends? Before we get into this conversation with Karolin all about nutrigenomics and your genetics and how you eat, which is a fascinating process, I want to tell you about a very fascinating woman who was at my Pound This party for my 40th birthday, because your girl's 40 now, is Sarah and Team Fit With Me. If you are looking for a phenomenal health coach who knows her ish, that would be Sarah. Whether you want to lose weight, you want to get stronger, you want to work on gut health issues, you have issues with hormones, or you have autoimmune disorders, Sarah can work with all of those things, and she could teach you all about macros, nutrition. She has an insane bank of recipes. She has an insane bank of knowledge behind her and her entire team. So if you're looking for a great health coach, no matter where you are, you can work with Sarah virtually. And right now you can save 10% off of month one of all packages and plans when you go to teamfitwithme.com/poundthis, and you can find that in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to the Pound This Podcast. I am Amanda Valentine. My guest today, let's see if I can pronounce your name correctly. Karolin Saweres. Did I do it?
You got it.
Yes!
Awesome.
Me and names, man. I'm glad that I nailed it on the first thought, although right before we started recording, I got it wrong. But we got it right that time.
You did an awesome job, Amanda. Thank you.
Thank you. Karolin, I'm so excited to chat with you about, we're going to talk a lot about nutrition, and that's so much of your background, which is, which we were just discussing before we started recording, is such a huge topic for everybody, because we all have to eat. And we're all so curious of like, what should I be eating and why, and what's better than the other? We were just discussing frozen meals, like which one's better than the other. And so like, obviously nutrition is such a huge topic. And the thing that we're going to discuss is such a different angle of having to know how to eat for your body that I'm really excited to get into. Now tell me if I'm pronouncing this right. Here we go. Nutrigenomics.
You got it.
Yes.
Awesome job.
Oh my God.
2 in a row.
Let's end the podcast now while I'm ahead. So we're going to get into nutrigenomics here in a minute. Before we do that, I want to talk about you and your background. You're a registered dietitian, you're a health coach, you're all the things. So tell me about you, your background, and what made you so interested in working in nutrition.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a registered dietitian nutritionist and owner of My Nutrition and Me. So I completed my bachelor's degree in dietetics from Florida State University, and I have my master's in clinical nutrition from Central Michigan University, and I completed my internship at Good Samaritan Hospital here in Cincinnati, Ohio.
And now you are practicing in Cincinnati, correct?
Yes, correct. So I'm registered and licensed in Ohio.
Awesome. So what made you originally be like, go through all that intense amount of schooling about nutrition? Like what made you interested in this topic?
Yeah. So actually I started out doing pre-pharmacy, and, you know, as I was doing it, I was thinking about it, and I figured, why give people medicine? Why not just work on their diet to prevent diseases so they don't have to be on so much medications?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Why do you feel like, I mean, after switching through the process of that, now when you work with people as a registered dietitian, do you see so many people on medications and you're like, let's see if we can get you off of those?
Yes, I do, especially, medications for hypertension, high blood pressure, and diabetes. So those things, we know that, weight loss, exercise, and healthy eating, of course, helps with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's got to feel really rewarding for you and the people that you work with of like, let's like, not only, I mean, can you see results like when you're talking about like your body size or weight and things like that, whenever you make, lifestyle changes, but it's like when you're actually not getting prescriptions anymore, that has to just be like a whole nother level of like, I don't have to take blood pressure medication anymore or high cholesterol or any of those things. Like I imagine that just has to feel so good for everybody involved to get the medications out of the picture.
It does. It is so rewarding for me and the client.
And I know that we're going to talk about, nutrigenomics, which I have not heard of before, but I know that you work in. And so explain to me what that is, because it's your genetics and what you should be eating pretty much, right?
Yes, so the nutrigenomics is the science that studies the interaction between the nutrients that we eat and our genes. So knowing more about our unique genetic makeup can help us find the optimal diet for our health, wellness, and even fitness.
So basically, I mean, tell me how the process works with this thing. So you take this test and then it just tells you genetically what you should be eating?
Yes. So it tells you how food, impacts your genes, or how your genes impact the food that you're eating. So it's a 70 gene report. It's basically it's 5 steps. So first we get a sample collection, which is like a cheek swab, and then we send the sample to the lab. And then we wait, about 3 to 4 weeks, and then we get the report. And then I schedule a meeting with the client to go over it in detail. So there are different things that, it's 70 different gene variants that we test for. So for example, it could tell you about, how caffeine impacts your health. So for example, if if you have a particular gene variant, and you're drinking too much caffeine, that can increase your risk for having hypertension or high blood pressure or heart disease.
Interesting. Have you noticed that, like, particularly with anybody that you've done this testing with, like that they were just like mainlining caffeine and you're like, hey, you're actually genetically, like, this is like harming you?
Yes. They also do caffeine and how it impacts your anxiety as well.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah. So some people can totally tell if caffeine makes them anxious or not. And obviously, it affecting your your blood pressure is also very important.
So, like, what else is it showing you? Because, I mean, is this like similar to when you do like an allergy test where it's like, hey, you shouldn't eat shellfish, you shouldn't eat tomatoes or something like that? Is it kind of that same sort of vibe, or how does that compare to like an allergy test?
So it's a little bit different, So some of those allergy tests, are not super accurate. And this one too, we're still doing, more research on it, but, we test, for example, another thing is sodium, how sodium impacts, your health, so if you're eating too many processed foods, adding too much salt to your diet, and you have that particular gene variant, that increases your risk also to have high blood pressure or heart disease. Now, looking at it in general, not everybody that adds too much sodium or adds too much salt to their food, gets high blood pressure.
Yeah. So
genes do impact this as well.
So is it showing you anything like breakdowns of like macros or anything like that? So to say like, hey, your body runs better if you're eating more protein or less carbs, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. It does that with fats, proteins, and carbs, and the different types of fats that you eat, saturated versus unsaturated, polyunsaturated versus monounsaturated. And, the different types of carbs, like do you need to eat more complex carbs versus simple carbs, how that impacts your health.
So does it show you even like breakdowns of like, how does your body react eating like a sweet potato versus eating like a quinoa?
Yes. So both of these foods are, higher in fiber, they're complex carbs. So both of these would be like in the same category, but like it would tell you, for example, like eating a white piece of bread versus a whole grain piece of bread. Or like a white cracker versus a whole grain cracker, like which one is better for you? Like we know the whole grain cracker, obviously it's better, but not everybody that eats white crackers, gets diabetes or pre-diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have those particular gene variants, yeah, it increases your risk for diabetes.
Interesting. So whenever you kind of get the layout and you do this, genetic testing on somebody, and you get all of these results, and how do you break that down? Do you break that down by showing them exactly what these foods are doing to them? And then are you like, hey, these are the like foods where I think that you should fill your diet with? Do you give some sort of meal plans? Like, how does that work?
Yes. So they get like a very long report. I can't remember how many pages, like maybe 25 pages. And we go over all of these and we list down very specific foods, that are high in certain vitamins, and also that are rich, in like omega-3s that we want you to eat more of, for example, if that specifically impacts your health. Another one that we do, is, for example, is like vitamin D. We know living in Ohio, we don't get much vitamin D from the sun because we're so far away from the equator. So knowing that we don't get that, and for example, if your diet, is not rich in vitamin D, and you have that particular gene variant, that increases your risk to be deficient in vitamin D, then we really need to add, perhaps some supplements. But then also remember, not everyone breaks down the supplement the same way. So that test also tells you if taking too many supplements is good or bad for you.
Oh, so, I mean, that's just awesome because it just takes the guesswork out of everything, because it's like everything else is just a guess. You know what I mean? Of like, oh, I think I know I'm vitamin D deficient, so I don't know, I'm going to buy these from Kroger and I'm going to take 3 of them and hope for the best and see what happens. But it's like, I love that you can just be like, no, you literally can take a test and your body will tell you, like, this is the correct amount of vitamin D to take to be at optimal level. Like, that just seems like it makes life much easier.
Right. And, what type of vitamin D you need to take, what type of folate or B12 you need to take.
So have you, with the people that you have done this testing with, have you found anything like super surprising, like surprising to you or surprising to them from getting like this knowledge about themselves? Yeah.
So, I mean, especially like with the fitness part, it even tells you, your motivation to exercise. So some people already know this information. Some people don't, so it's more your motivation to get to the gym is genetic. Your motivation when you get to the gym and exercise and continue exercise, that's actually genetic too.
So how does it tell that? Like, that seems crazy to me. It tells you like, hey, we think that you like running.
Right. And it's, true like 100% of the time, for the clients that I've done it for. So it's super interesting. It also tells you things about, your taste perception to fat and sugar. If you prefer sweets over salty and things like that, that is all genetic.
So interesting. Well, then I'm wondering, because you hear like, okay, I'm sure you hear this a lot as a dietitian and nutritionist and health coach, that you hear the term like, I'm addicted to sugars. Like I can't stop eating sugar. So if it is, you take this test and it shows you they're more predisposed to wanting to have more sweets, what do you do with that? Like, cause it seems like people are just like, I need to stop this, make me stop this, but I can't, I'm addicted. So is that where this test helps you be like, hey, maybe you shouldn't, or maybe these are the foods that you should include, or how does it help with that arena?
Yes. So me as a registered dietitian, I also take a look at what you've been doing. And, are you eating a good breakfast in the morning? Are you including high protein foods with your meals? Are you getting enough fiber? Because all of that also can affect your cravings as well. Not only genetics, but, so it can be both. So I take a look at all of it, and then we come up with the best personalized plan for you to help you be successful, and prevent the onset of different diseases.
Well, yeah, it's just kind of crazy. I didn't realize it told you your fitness levels and things too. It's like that you could take this test and it'll be like, here's how you should move. Here's how you should eat. Here's how you should supplement. Does it show you also how many hours of sleep you should get a night? Does it have a recommendation to
Yes,
just fine on 5?
Yes, it does. Some people genetically, they're okay with less hours of sleep. Some people are not. And that test will be able to tell you this.
Now, did you have anything surprising with any clients with that, with maybe that they were sleeping maybe 6 hours a night, and you did this test and they're like, no, you need to sleep 9 hours. And this is maybe why you're not achieving your goals.
Yes. I've seen that. Yes.
That's crazy. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like this seems like such a good solution to so many things. Why do you feel why is this not more widespread? Why is this not more, I don't know, you hear dieting all the time, and we're going to talk about keto and all this stuff. I think everybody has heard the term keto, but how come I have not heard the term nutrigenomics? How come this is seems not even discussed?
Because it's an emerging science. We're still doing, research on it. We need more research, but the research that's available, it looks pretty promising.
Yeah. I mean, how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing it for 5 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So, I mean, have you noticed even a difference from when you started using this with clients to now, that it's gotten better?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've added, more gene variants that they're testing for. They started out with maybe 25 and now it's 70.
Wow.
For this particular company that I use, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you, whenever you work with a client, whether you're, just being a registered dietitian with what you're doing or anything, do you always recommend somebody take this test, or is it just kind of hey, this is an option that I have, you can take it, or is this a thing that you're no, we absolutely need to do this before we work together?
No, I don't like pushing anything upon my clients. I'm not the best business person, but yeah, no, absolutely. It just depends on what the client needs, what they're looking for. That's why I like to have discovery calls with my clients before I work with them to determine, the best package for them, what their goals are, and we go from there.
What would you say is the top goal people work with you? Is it just general health? Is it weight loss, or what is it?
I do a lot of weight management, but I also do a lot of clinical nutrition, some gut health, people with GI issues, IBS, things like that.
Well, I mean, how much does this test help with that? If somebody's having a gut issue or any of that, does this test kind of explain some of those things too?
So this test, it's not a diagnostic test for anything. It just tells you if you're at increased risk for gluten intolerance or celiac disease, or for example, lactose intolerance. So those are pretty much the only 2 gene variants that we test for gut health and GI issues.
Okay. They think that's awesome too, because it's not this thing promises you the entire world. You know what I mean? It's it does what it does, and it's not going to give you all of the answers. It feels like when things kind of go into that level, you're just kind of like, really, it's going to tell me like everything. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that this would be able to help. And then you could kind of explore those sorts of issues on top of this. Would that be a correct assumption?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So if somebody is like, dang, I really want to check this out. This sounds super interesting. I want to know more about this. How do they have a discovery call with you, or how do they ask you questions, or how do they like book a session, et cetera?
Yeah, so they could go on my website, mynutritionandme.com, and just fill out that contact us form. And I'll be happy to give them a call or email them, and we can schedule a discovery call.
Okay. And then so on top of just doing this testing though, I mean, what other services do you offer?
So I do a coaching package, whether it's for weight management or, or for gut health, if you need to be on a low FODMAP diet, or, if you need continued support, I do have packages. If you just want to do just a one session, for MNT, medical nutrition therapy, like if you have diabetes and just want to know, the best personalized diet that's going to help, your hemoglobin A1C and your blood glucose levels, we could just schedule a one-time session.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, I mean, I'm super interested in this. I'm like, I'm going to have to think about the pricing because it's like any of those tests. Like, I mean, so many of these tests where you do blood work or anything. I mean, it's a cost. I mean, again, but it's your health. So it's like one of those things. I'm like, dang, I'm going to have to put this on my Christmas list because I am super curious. Because it's just like we were just discussing of like, man, all I'd have to do is like basically, swab my mouth and then I can know how I'm supposed to like eat and move for like optimal health. That is, I mean, I think that's pretty incredible. So I'm definitely going to keep this on my wish list because I would just, why wouldn't you want to know more about yourself, in my opinion? Absolutely.
Why you want to, do some guesswork? Why don't you get, exact answers for your questions? It is a great test. It's a once in a lifetime test. And the earlier you do it, the better.
Awesome. Well, Karolin, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast and allowing me to pronounce everything correctly.
You did an awesome job, Amanda. Thank you so much.
AmandaValentineBites.com